Judea and Samaria is where our story in the land of Israel began. It is where it will continue. We are not going anywhere.
Judea and Samaria is the West Bank. That is the term that fascist Israelis use because they think they are the chosen people and the Übermensch, and that the Palestinians should be driven from that land, murdered, moved, ethnically cleansed, because they think God whispered in their ear 3,000 years ago, murder the Palestinians and take their land. Are you sure you're listening to God, or are you listening to someone else? But this story, unfortunately, has a lot more to it, including the reign of terror that the Israelis are doing in the West Bank. Yaz, tell us about it.
Yeah, so right now, the UN is saying there is an unprecedented level of violence in the occupied West Bank, and it's bringing everything to a breaking point. And we know that the atrocities being committed by Israel extend far beyond Gaza. But now the West Bank is finally getting some attention from the international community. So the UN Security Council held its second meeting on the Middle East in 2 weeks on Tuesday as experts and ambassadors discussed the attacks, arrests, demolitions, and displacements in the occupied territory. And according to the UN, there have been more than 1,430 incidents of Israeli settler violence affecting about 260 Palestinian communities this year alone. And while the world is focused elsewhere, people in the West Bank have been suffering without the benefit of extensive media coverage. So while the fragile ceasefire in Gaza and regional tensions consume much of the international community's attention, the West Bank is at a breaking point, and that is from UN Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, Ramiz Alakbarov. And they told the council, saying settler violence has reached unprecedented levels. The pattern is clear. Palestinian populations are increasingly being forcibly displaced from villages across the West Bank before settlers seize the vacated land. And the numbers are expectedly very bleak. So far this year, 75 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank, and 3,800 Palestinians, nearly half of those children, have been displaced. Additionally, Israeli forces have arrested 23 Palestinians, including children, across the West Bank, and they arrested more than 60 Palestinians in the Kalandian refugee camp in just 2 days earlier this month. And it's the same thing we've become used to seeing from the IDF in Gaza. The IDF works alongside these settlers to destroy Palestinian homes or to evict Palestinians from their homes. And Palestinians in the West Bank who are displaced are then limited in their attempts to access any kind of essential services. So the UN independent expert said in a statement on Monday in response to the escalation of the attacks that settler terror is not spontaneous. It operates with the protection and often the participation of the Israeli occupation forces in tandem with record settlement expansion, mass demolitions, land seizures, and the prolonged sealing of refugee camps, all sustained and encouraged by members of the Israeli cabinet. And in addition to the homes, they are, of course, also destroying schools. The IDF, however, is somehow publicly denouncing and condemning the attacks on Palestinian homes, calling them reprehensible. But at the same time, they're still complaining that no one talks about all the attacks from the Palestinians against them. You know, they're the ones who are occupying their land and destroying their homes. The Israelis are also trying to use their very tried and true line about Iran supplying Hamas with weaponry to use against the Israelis. But it doesn't work as well as it used to because Hamas is not in the West Bank, they're in Gaza. And despite calls from the international community to end the atrocities and all of the illegal operations, as we were talking about in the last segment, the Israeli government does not care. There is no accountability, there are no consequences, and the government has announced plans to approve more settlements in the region. And Alakbarov spelled it out. They said, we must be clear-eyed about what is taking place. These are interconnected steps, not isolated developments. They are reshaping the West Bank, weakening Palestinian governance, and advancing de facto annexation. Israel's UN ambassador Danny Danon did not agree that the West Bank settlements were obstacles to peace, however, and he insisted that the Israelis have a biblical right to do everything they're doing and that they are not going anywhere.
Madam President, I could lecture for hours about our biblical rights, our historical rights, our legal rights to Judea and Samaria. But if we want to be practical today, and if this council is serious about bringing security and stability to the region, it must understand a simple truth. We are not going anywhere. This reality reflects a double standard that we must address today. Jews have never been and will never be settlers in Judea and Samaria. It's a provocation. Why? Because first, it denies our connection to the land of Israel. It distracts from constant terrorist attacks against Israelis, and it collectively labels entire innocent communities for the crimes of the marginal extremist minority. Our right to live in our land is based on our historical connection to it. Judea and Samaria is where our story in the land of Israel began. It is where it will continue. We are not going anywhere.
Cenk, that biblical explanation is so played out, I feel. I remember when I was like a freshman or sophomore in high school, which was like over 20 years ago, we did a mock trial about the Israeli-Palestinian situation. And the Israeli side, they called up Jesus to the stand. And at that point, it was like the Palestinian side is like, how are we supposed to argue against this? It was also randomly chosen which side you were gonna be on, by the way. I didn't choose to be on the Palestinian side. But I'm glad I was.
Yeah, so they say that they have had the land for 3,000 years. Well, let's break that down a little bit. So number one, that's literally not true. When in 1948, when Israel was declared a state, Jews only owned 6% of the property in all of Israel and Palestine. 6%. There were almost no Jews in the West Bank at all. And now they have moved in 750,000 Israelis there. Well, when you move in people to where they weren't before, you are settlers. There's no question about that. They moved in millions of people who became Israelis since 1948. They are settlers because they came in from somewhere else. Oh, I used to live there 3,000 years ago. Dude, you're Polish. In fact, Danny Dayan doesn't just talk like a Nazi, he literally looks like a Nazi. So, because they're from Europe. They're from Europe. Don't tell me you were there 3,000 years. You weren't there 3,000 years ago. Not you. You're utterly made up. Utterly made up. Okay. So they say, oh, maybe. Okay, well, but let's say that they were right. They say, oh my God, 3,000 years ago, some ancestor that they can't trace and they won't take genetic tests because then that will prove that they're Europeans and not from the Middle East. They're like, oh no, that's anti-Semitic to find out what we are. How could it be anti-Semitic to find out if you are if we don't even know who you are? How could we be against who you are if we don't know what it is? Okay, so anyways, they say, yeah, well, maybe if you trace it all the way back. And hence, since I lived there once before, well, not me, but like a billion generations ago, I get to have that land. Well, okay, that's interesting logic because the Turks were there only 120 years ago. It was all of ours. It was ours. The whole thing, Israel, Palestine, all of it was ours. So that's it, I want it back. My ancestors had it. So I'm gonna go murder all the Israelis there and the Palestinians and take it back. Because the Israelis tell me that that's normal. That's of course, if an ancestor of yours lived there some time ago, you have the right to murder everyone there and take their land. Take their literal homes that they lived in and their parents lived in and their grandparents lived in and their great grandparents lived in. You just slit their throats like they're doing in the West Bank. Murdered 1,000 people since well over 1,000 people since October 7th. Israel has now murdered or done 70 October 7ths in Gaza. Our press said the one October 7th that happened in Israel was the worst thing since the Holocaust. It was just terrible, I agree. Then they say, but if you do it 70 times, as long as you're an Israeli, that's totally okay. Because the Palestinians are subhuman. Our press agrees with the Israelis. They are the superior race, and they're allowed to murder the inferior race at any rate they like. So I'm outraged by October 7th, 70 October 7th, don't care. I won't call it a genocide. How could something that's 70 times worse be better? That just doesn't make any sense at all, unless you really do believe the Israelis are the Ubermensch and the Palestinians and the Lebanese and the Iranians and all of the Arabs and all the Persians and all the Muslims and all the Christians are inferior and their lives just aren't worth that much. That's not just a disgusting Israeli government that has now fully taken on Nazi ideology, but it is also our press that says no big deal. Now that brings us back to the West Bank. They've done an October 7th on the West Bank, well over 1,000 people killed there. So in October 7th, there was about 860 civilians, I believe, in that ballpark killed in Israel. And then there was another 300 some odd that were soldiers. So a little over 1,100, now more than 1,100 killed in the West Bank, almost all civilians. And our press goes, so what? So what? They're just stupid Palestinians. Wait, I thought you said killing over 1,100 people was the worst thing since the Holocaust. They're like, no, only if it happens to Israel. If it happens to the Palestinians, well, I mean, the Israelis claim they had that land 3,000 years ago, and they're speaking to their God and what they claim is God. And so they have what? Do they own God? So Muslims and Christians also believe they speak to God, and they have directions from God that are different than what Israel says. And our press goes, shut up. You don't have any rights to God. Only the Israelis have the rights to God, and their God says that you should get murdered and that they should steal your land. So their God is correct. So when they do endless October 7th on you, irrelevant. Okay, so what's happening now is the West Bank is being slaughtered. Hamas didn't come from there, they didn't attack. You see that? They say, oh, no, we're murdering all the Palestinians because they're terrorists. But they didn't do terrorism from the West Bank. Hamas is not from the West Bank. Well, we're murdering them anyway because we want their land because Beelzebub or God or Jim Jablowski promised it to me. Jim Jablowski? What are you making of what? Oh yeah, Dr. Zeus promised it to me. Okay, so now I get to kill you. If you use that ideology, then we all murder each other to no end. No, the Turks don't have a right to the land because they were there 120 years ago. And the Israelis don't have a right because they're pretending they were there 3,000 years ago. They weren't there in 1947, only 6%. And that's after they moved a whole bunch of people before 1947. Only 6%. Now, they're beyond 100%. They're in southern Lebanon, they're in southern Syria. They took Golan Heights and they kept taking and moving settlers in that murder the people that live there. And our press and our politicians go, yeah, that's okay. As long as Israel does it, Gott mit uns. God is with them. God is with them. They get to murder. And you dirty Palestinians and Lebanese and Muslim and Christians, how dare you? How dare you object to the chosen people? So that's not my language. I despise that language. That's Danny Dayan, Ben Gvir, Smotrich, Netanyahu's their Nazi language about being chosen by God to murder the rest of us and take all of our land and property. What kind of a sick ideology is that? No, I don't bow to that. Anyone who bows to that is bowing to a false God and is bowing to something that is deeply immoral. No one, not the Israelis, not the Palestinians, not anyone gets to murder innocent civilians and use the excuse of God made me do it. It is a disgusting excuse and a deeply immoral reason to do what they're doing. And our media can tell you it's okay, but it's not okay. No matter how much they do Israeli propaganda, do not believe the lying scum on television who keep telling you that it's okay and that the Israelis are the victims. You're hearing them with their own words tell you, we're never going to leave these poor Palestinians alone. We're never going to free them. We're going to keep stealing and stealing and stealing their land. If you don't like the word that, you can't say steal because it's Israel. You can say that all other countries are stealing, but you can't say it about Israel because it's anti-Semitic. Kiss my ass. Kiss my ass. I don't care what you call anti-Semitic. No, Israel doesn't get special privileges and special protections. When they steal, we're going to call it stealing. And if you want to lie on behalf of Israel, you're the disgusting anti-Semite. Arabs are also Semites. You're like, yeah, but murdering Arabs is no big deal. That's not anti-Semitic. They're not the chosen people, right? Jake Tapper doesn't give a damn about anyone that isn't Israeli. We've got to stop these Nazis before they do even more damage.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.